Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to my channel and another deck profile. Today, let's break down the winning list that happened in the Champions League just a couple days ago, kind of how Miraidon EX really was the dark horse and surprised us with its win. So it teamed up with Magnezone VStar and managed to get the win as a really good counter for Lost Box. Miraidon also got another top 16 result, but as of recording, we are unsure if it is the Magnezone version. And a couple weeks ago, it did in fact get a top 8 placement at regionals. That's all it really has going for it right now. Didn't do as well as most people hoped. But in the City League, it did actually do incredibly well by getting 37 wins, purely with its incredibly strong tandem unit ability to kind of get the lightning Pokemon you might need to have onto your bench. Despite all of this card having incredibly strong ability, a really good Lost Box counter of Magnezone, it actually doesn't have the strongest of win rate, with being 43% in the Champions League just this weekend, as well as being 46% right now on Limitless on the online tournaments. Again, these are some early numbers. They have obviously subject to change, but it's very reliant on having the tandem unit ability, as well as having huge one-hit KO potential with Regieleki VMAX's ability. It can really be hindered by Path to the Peak and other drawing factors. So let's jump into the list. So the list does play 3 copies of Miraidon EX, an incredibly powerful ability to get 2 lightning Pokemon you might need to put them onto your bench. As attack, Photon Blast does 220 damage, and you can't attack next turn. Doesn't seem very powerful, but you team up with Regieleki VMAX's ability, all of a sudden 2 of these out in play, you're doing 60 more damage, getting the lovely 280 damage to get KOs on nearly everything in the format right now. Regieleki V is also a really good attacker, with that switching bolt to get the 30 and then switch to the bench. Again, team up with Regieleki VMAX, you can do big one-hit KOs on any of the Lost Box sort of decks and bring up something which is too hard for them to deal with. Or you have the Lightning Wall does 100, and then you get to take 100 less next turn. Very powerful archetype. So those are some pretty good attackers. Where does Magnezone fit in and how does it work? Well, Magnezone V has a pretty good attack for a lightning colorless. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with the active, and that new one takes 40 more damage. That seems pretty okay, but you team up with, say for example, getting a Manaphy backup, that's all of a sudden that big one-hit KO on that Manaphy, so you can lead in with Magnezone V-Star ability attack to do for 2 lightning energies, 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Water Shuriken, but mainly just to the bench. Very strong, because especially you can get those KOs on either Curliers and Gardevoir, or potentially the Comfies on the Lost Box. This can really swing the Lost Box sort of match, as you can finally get those 2 prize sort of turns, which this deck really struggles with. Because getting those big, only just 1 prize each turn, Miraidon can really fall behind, but this can really push it into Miraidon's favor because of that. We also played 2 copies of Raikou V. I love this card, especially having a higher count in it. The fleet-footed ability just to draw 1 card if it's in the active spot is so good, especially in a very limited draw factor in this deck. And its attack does just take 1 less energy than most of your field, only for 2, which is really good, and it can really ramp up a lot of damage with the more Regieleki VMAX you have in play, and if the opponent doesn't respect it. Very powerful attacker, especially in the mid to late game. And we also have Drapion V to help with your Mew matchup. Trying to get those big one-hit KOs with Drapion V really helps you don't have to sacrifice too much with having potentially 2 Regieleki VMAXs plus Choice Belt to get the KO on a Mew VMAX. So to the Pokemon lineup, I think it's a really powerful and strong sort of lineup for them. The 2-1 line of Magnus and V-Star is a really nice change, because decks we've been seeing recently have been playing Klefki or Flying Pikachu VMAX to try and help with the matchup that way. Item cards, we do play 3 copies of Nest Ball and 3 copies of Ultra Ball. I like this. You could potentially go to 4 Nest Ball for 2 Ultra Ball, but because you're playing some other cards like Drapion, Magnezone V-Star, and Regieleki VMAX, you want to have a higher chance to search them, because Nest Ball can't really get those sort of Pokemon out all the time. Apologies, it can get Drapion out. 4 copies of Electro Generator. Really powerful. This is how the deck works, guaranteed to get the energy cards you might need to flood them onto the bench so you can get the big one, potentially turn 1 KO. 2 copies of Escape Rope is really good to disruption, because Miraidon EX does in fact kind of attack next turn, and Magnezone V-Star does have quite a high retreat cost, so trying to get the amount of the active spot without sacrificing too much is really good. Energy Recycler, I am a huge fan of this card right now in Miraidon, especially as if you've used a lot of your sort of energies that early on. This can really help late game so you can get those potentially 2 energies of Electro Generator you might need. Tool cards are an incredibly important aspect on this. Like I said, the choice belt really helps swing the matchup. It also means you're not as reliant on Regieleki VMAXs, so you can really protect them and only use them when you have to. Because if you have one VMAX out plus choice belt, you're doing 280 damage to most of the V-Star Pokemon in the game to gain those KOs on Giratina and Arceus and Lugias if they have a Dunsparce in play. 2 copies of EXP Share came in clutch if you watched it back in the stream, because it can make sure that you're not sacrificing a load of your energies. Potentially, if one of your Miraidon goes down and you don't have any energies in play, you can really struggle, and that's where Miraidon gets hurt. The 2 copies of EXP Share really helps where Raikou may only need to have 1 attachment, or Miraidon might need, you can attach and have EXP Share. So again, that only needs 1 energy attachment. Really try and be as kind of protective as possible with your energies, and that's where EXP Share shines. And the 1 copy of Forest Sealstone to get any card you might need. It's a way to do it so if you're not playing against Lost Box, you don't need Magnezone, so that's when Forest Sealstone is good. And we played 2 copies of Pokegear to try and get the supporter cards we may need. Supporters are very similar to what we've seen most of the time. 4 copies of Research, and then 2 Boss, 2 Arvins, and 2 Judge. Judge, again, to be disruptive, Arvin to get the item cards we might need, plus any of the tool cards as well, like the Choice Belt or EXP Share, which can really help us on the game, and 2 copies of Boss, because you can really get those big one-hit KOs, and Boss can easily get us that number. 3 copies of Beach Court, because nearly all of them are basic Pokemon. The only one which you need to struggle with will be Magnezone V-Star, which will actually have a retreat cost of 2 no matter what, so trying to get those free retreat on Miraidon and also Raikou is really good. 13 copies of Lightning Energy is a little bit on the lower sort of aspect, but it's incredibly good. You want to have between 13 to 15 in your Miraidon list, so you want to hit with Electro Generator and also help you late game so you're not just clogging your hand with energies. Overall, this is a really powerful archetype, which I really love that people have cracked Miraidon again. Having Magnezone V is an incredibly helpful aspect, especially against Lost Box. But what's this matchups looking like? Well, it's like I said, it has pretty positive against Lost Box, and because of the Magnezone's V-Star attack, getting that potentially 2 prize sort of attack is exactly what this deck needs. Like I said, with Arceus Giratina, now you have Choice Belt, as well as you don't need to rely too much on your Regielekis. You can get those big one-hit KOs nearly every single turn, whether it be with Raikou or the Miraidon, because they have to have a large bench size anyway. Lugia Single Strike, again, very kind of bit positive. Yes, they can use Tyranitar and Stonjourner to get those one-hit KOs, which is pretty scary, but because you can hit for weakness and they're not reliant too much on Dunsparce, you can really have a field day with Lugia and try not to get them set up. If you actually watch back the stream of the finals, you can see that really in action. And Gardevoir EX, again, Magnezone can get those KOs, especially when you need that late game to try and stop their curlier setup, or just get those KOs which you might need. But please remember, you do need to have 3 Regieleki VMAXs out to get the one-hit KO on Gardevoir EX if they have no damage counters on it. Kind of because I said it's a little bit of a slow one, could be Lost Zone Giratina. Why is this one a bit slower? Well, I've played so many games with Lost Zone Giratina, and it can still be really kind of not get what you need to have. Yes, Magnezone does help a little bit. You could even argue it may be 50-50, but it can really struggle. If Giratina is getting the attack out turn 2 and even getting the big KOs on the Regieleki VMAX, you can really struggle to keep up, especially as they can nearly go 2 pry, like get 2 KOs on Regieleki VMAX, nearly back-to-back, potentially with setup with the Sableye. Mew VMAX, yes, I said we have everything to help with it, but it still can be 50-50. Mew, I find, if they get set up, can really protect itself, especially if you think about cards like the Path to Peak Judge list, which is becoming very popular and something to really consider against. And the Rapid Strike box does in fact have a 50% chance. Yes, you can get the one-hit KOs on the what's it called, Italian VMAX, which is really good, but Urshifu can get the one-hit KO back on potentially even your Regieleki VMAX, which you do not want to see play. And they can really team up with Yoga Loop to try and potentially win the game very easily. Something to really consider about, especially because Rapid Strike box can definitely come in clutch to try and get some wins. These are sort of the rough sort of aspect, but it still is 50-50%. With this, it can do huge amount of damage with Lost Box and try and swing that into your favor. So Is this a good sort of deck to consider for EUIC? I do think this could be a good one to definitely try testing. I haven't tested this too much of a list. I have seen a couple games, played a few, and really found Magnezone to be really helpful, especially going into your Lost Box sort of decks. Definitely something to keep on your radar to understand. Yes, Miraidon does have now basically 3 versions. You can include Flying Pikachu VMAX, Klefki, and now Magnezone. Really consider which one you want to test out. If your heart is set on Miraidon for EUIC or other tournaments, really be open to try all 3 versions before you commit potentially next week onto the version you want to go into your tournaments. But I hope this has been helpful to understand about what its matchups like and why each card is incredibly valuable into the list. If you're new, please make sure to subscribe and leave a like, and also drop a comment down below if this is a deck that you want to try out yourself. My name is TCG, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Bye for now.